Welcome, everyone. Really excited to host you all again for this, I guess, biweekly meeting of the CRE 101 meetup group. Today we have Dave. How do you pronounce your last name? Is it Oetken?
Etken, Dave Oetken.
Dave Oetken. We actually met a few weeks ago regarding one of my clients who's looking for a space and wanted to learn a little bit more about the Small Business Development Center. But he's the development director at the local Small Business Development Center. And I thought it'd be a great opportunity for us to just learn a little bit more about the resources that are available, because I mean, they really do have some phenomenal resources that are free to entrepreneurs. And if this applies to you, then definitely you definitely want to learn a little bit more what they offer. So Dave, generally speaking, when we have these meetings, we start out by trying to learn a little bit more about the person that's our speaker. So if you can kind of share a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your background and what got you into, I guess, the Small Business Development Center.
I've kind of, had a lot of, big background in small business, working and starting and managing small businesses. The opportunity kind of came up to kind of get involved. I've kind of tapped into the services before, and they've always been very helpful with me, so when the opportunity kind of presented itself that I can get involved, I did so. So it's been a really rewarding career, and I've been doing this about 5 or 6 years now so far. And I learn more than I've ever had before from everybody. So it's kind of great.
Yeah, and one of the things I was really impressed with about those at the Small Business Development Center is their depth of expertise. I mean, you've run multiple businesses, right? You had was it hockey? You had to run a few hockey rinks as well, and had various other forays in business?
Yeah, so it's been kind of a mishmash of different things all over, and then that's kind of what the cool part about what we do is, I mean, we get to see what works and what doesn't in a bunch of different industries, as we work with clients and small business owners. So it's a real education, but it's also a great cross-pollination opportunity for the people we work with, because what we find out works in one area, sometimes it often works very well in a different industry.
Definitely. No, of course. So for those people who are watching that don't know what the Small Business Development Center is, could you kind of give us a 50,000 or 30,000 foot view of what it is, and then we can kind of dive into the different services you guys offer throughout this call. But
yeah, so we're a department of the SBA, the Small Business Administration, and when the SBA got started way back when in the 60s, I think, the SBA made direct loans to basically non-bankable businesses. And as you might suspect, over time, their failure rate was pretty high. The default rate on the loans was pretty high. So they found that if they had a technical service provider, an organization like us, to kind of assist borrowers when they kind of get behind or things like that, their default rate really went down. So over time, though, the SBA morphed into an organization where they don't make the direct loans anymore, but they do guarantee loans through banks. But we stayed on as existed as an organization and expanded our mission just from in what was started out just helping SBA loan borrowers only, to basically be an economic development resource for small businesses, throughout the communities we're in. We're in all 50 states and territories. There's, in addition to my center here in Louisville, I have a staff of 5. There's 13 other centers in Kentucky that are spread across the state. And statewide, there's about 35 of us spread out all across the state. And so that gives us kind of a depth of knowledge, and we have a pretty strong bench that if we have some issues here that we can't tackle, we can always pull in somebody that may have the type of expertise we need from across the state to bring to bear.
Awesome. And then one question I often get asked related to the Small Business Administration: what size of businesses do you guys work with? Is it small businesses, or is it kind of runs the gamut?
Well, I have clients. I have a client that could be like a guy with a lawnmower, and then I do have a client that is a plastic injection molding plant that probably has 200 employees and does, 50 million a year. And the cool thing is that, all our services are free. We don't charge anything for what we do, because your tax dollars basically pay our salary. So you've already paid for us.
Yeah, no, it's a resource for the community for individuals who are entrepreneurs to be able to tap into. I mean, it is a free resource, and that's something that's really cool. And it's another thing that a lot of people just don't know about, and they think that, oh, maybe especially if you're not necessarily a startup. Some people who are more established in business, they may think, oh, well, that doesn't really apply to me, but in reality, it does. I mean,
Right.
and to your point, I mean, a lot of people that are in the Small Business Development Center have a lot of experience, as a lot of them are entrepreneurs themselves. They had business as well, so they kind of can draw on that information to kind of help out whatever industry you're in. So that's really cool. So
Exactly.
now that we kind of elaborated a little bit on what the Small Business Development Center is, can you kind of provide us feedback on what are some of the areas that Small Business Development Centers do to help small business or startups and small businesses?
Yeah. So if you're going to start a business, we're a great place to start. We, if if you're just going to do a little small single member LLC, we can get all that stuff registered for you, set up your business for you. And we don't really charge anything for that. So you can save several $100s for that. Also, if you are looking at a business and you need to kind of check the feasibility of it, we also subscribe to fairly expensive industry databases where we can pull industry analysis, marketing data for you. We provide that all no charge as well. And then lastly, what we're really good at, and we do a lot of, is help you find financing for your business. So if you're going to start a business, you will generally have to acquire assets to start that business. So if you don't have all the money you need yourself, then you might need to get a loan or something like that. So we can help you find like conventional financing. We're really great. We're all SBA certified. We also work with banks and lending institutions from all over the country. So, I often, kind of say that, if you're going to put something together, it's kind of like a puzzle. It's generally not one funding source that you get a deal done. You might have to pull a little piece from the SBA, another loan or grant from some other source across the country, and you put all those pieces together, and you finally have that enough money that you need. If you have an existing business and you're growing, growth costs money as well. So if you're gonna, you got a big old new customer and you have to buy a bunch of new inventory to stock up with, then there's financing options for that. If you need a building, we can help with that. So there's, that's the main thing we do is help people, fund and run their business. The other thing we've been doing a lot of, and it's kind of sad in a way, but with the opening up of online lending platforms and the ease that you can get money from some of these online lenders, it's great to get money quickly that way, but the payment terms can be pretty hard. And so we spend a lot of time refinancing people out of these online lenders that they've kind of gotten stuck into, and it causes them really cash flow problems. So we've done quite a few of those last year.
That's awesome. So, and you elaborated a little bit on financing, which was going to be my next question, which was related to what are some of the financing options available? I mean, you did mention the SBA, you did mention various other lenders that you work with. Do you have like a network of lenders that you have relationships with, or how does that work?
We do. We work with, all banks, and most of the banks in town know us very well. They refer clients to us, and we refer to them. Generally, banks tend to like to concentrate in certain industries. They learn those industries and they're comfortable with it. So whereas one bank may hate working with restaurants, we have banks that love them, and that's maybe 80% of their loan packages is in restaurant startup and growth. So just kind of knowing, making those calls. We've done those. So we can give you 2 or 3 references. We can make warm introductions for you, so you're not going in there cold. And then part of our service is we will help you put together that loan package with a business plan, all the marketing plan. Make sure you have we have a nice documentation checklist. So we'll have everything, make sure you have everything you need and make that introduction. And the banks love that. We have a great financial projection package that we use that's based on SBA and banking criteria. So all your numbers look good, and the underwriting department at a bank is very happy because they have to do very little work once we get a hold of it. Everybody's good.
Yeah, definitely. And I'll say this, especially when I've been dealing with startup businesses, a lot of times they don't have a frame of reference off which to go off when it comes to financing. So a lot of times they assume it's going to be as simple or as streamlined as let's say buying a home, which in reality it's not, especially when you're talking about different industries, like you said, different banks have different aptitudes towards different industries. So some banks just don't even want to deal with it. Some banks do. Their underwriting criteria may be different with one bank versus another. So there's a lot of variables in play. And so having those systems in place is crucial. So I think that the fact you guys do provide those services is phenomenal, because I mean, you definitely don't want to underestimate the timeline and the different things that a bank looks for when they're going to issue a loan. So
Exactly.
And you did elaborate a little bit on the business plan and marketing plan. Could you kind of tell me, and that's another thing with a lot of, and I've spoken to business entrepreneurs for quite some time, and some of them are like, why do I even need a business plan? Why do I need a marketing plan? Like, what is the point of having that in place?
Well, you need that to plan your business. The best example is like if, I don't know if you've experienced this, but let's just say you're going to remodel your kitchen and you have your contractor come in, and every day you show up with a new idea and you make some changes. I mean, your initial budget's going to go way off if you're designing on the fly like that. And that analogy works exactly just like in a business. If you think it's going to cost you X number of dollars to start your business and you design on the fly like that without kind of really thinking through what things you need, it'll end up generally costing you twice as much as that you, or even more than you thought it would be, in the beginning. Also, it's also a kind of a marketing tool / selling package to the bank itself. I mean, you have to assure the bank that you have the capacity to repay those loans, and having a strong business plan kind of demonstrates that you know what you're doing and you've thought this through, and you can show them, pretty much step by step how this business is going to be successful and generate enough cash to pay this loan back.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I agree. And I mean, it's just more of a question that I've gotten before. It's like, well, why would I need a business plan? I mean, if I have an idea of what I want to do, I mean, I'll figure it out as I go. But you're right. I think it's important to have something in place to be able to reference as you go along, so you're not kind of shooting in the dark. So that's super important.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that once you have that plan that is it and you don't make any changes. Yeah, you're going to have to make changes, as new things come up and you learn different things. But the most important process is the planning process, not so much writing the plan and having the plan, but doing the research, thinking things through, and testing those assumptions, and being able to validate and sell those assumptions to somebody that will fund you. That's the most valuable part of that.
Definitely. No, that's awesome. So you did mention earlier, you have a wide range of different clients. You have someone who has a lawnmower versus someone who has a plastic injection company that has 200 employees and does 50 million revenue, right? Can you tell us a little bit of maybe a few case studies of maybe a smaller business and then maybe one of the mid-sized to larger businesses that you've helped, and how the Small Business Development Center has helped them get to where they wanted to go?
Wow, that's a big question. That's I don't know. There's a ton of things. I'll go back to the online lender example. A lot of restaurants would get these calls from these online lenders and say, we'll give you $100,000 and we'll just take so much money out of your credit card receipts each week, and it's easy to pay off. And then it ends up being that they take maybe 15% of your gross receipts each week. And no business can really sustain that type of decrease in income. So what we would do is go in and maybe work through some operational changes where we can kind of improve cash flow a little bit, and then put together a loan package and get that funded, where instead of where they might be paying $8,000 a month in payments to the online lender, they would be paying like $700 a month to an SBA lender. So we would take those payments, that amount, pay off the online lender, and then extend those credit terms out far enough to give them breathing room, and be a successful business that way. Another cool example is we had during the pandemic, when everything was shut down, we had an event company that did a lot of big events that you probably would have heard of, and they had a catering license and a bar license, and so they basically they were dead in the water, and we kind of worked through some things with them and set them up where they were able to use some of their licenses to do delivery, especially with their liquor license, where they could kind of make some home deliveries with liquor and and put together some signature cocktails and stuff. So they've done pretty, decently and survived fairly nicely through the pandemic. So, a lot of times it's not so much just, this funding thing that we do a lot of, but again, having the opportunity to kind of kick around some ideas and have somebody to talk to when you're kind of facing a crisis like that.
That's awesome. Yeah. No, and like you said, I mean, it's not necessarily just about the financing. This is resources available to everyone, and it's a free resource. And if you don't take advantage of it, it's almost, you're missing out. So
exactly.
What are some, this is another thing that I've gotten questions about. So what are some of the considerations that business owners or aspiring business owners need to take into consideration before they start a business? Because you can have an idea, you can think it's a great idea, but it's not like you just jump in the water. What would you recommend?
The first thing is to kind of validate the idea that that there's other people that actually like the idea. I've done this where I think this is the best idea ever. I have the best meatloaf recipe in the world, and I'm going to open a meatloaf restaurant. And if you look down the street, there's no meatloaf restaurants, so maybe nobody likes meatloaf as much as I do. So we call that customer discovery, where you put together some assumptions and kind of test that by talking to customers. Like, get out of your office and go and talk to potential customers, get some feedback, and try to make sure that your idea is actually feasible and has real customers that will pay. When you are going to start a business and you ask your friends and family, they all love the idea. The test is whether they'll actually pay for the idea.
Definitely. No, of course. And then as far as as far as any other assumptions are concerned, I would say one thing from a financing perspective. A lot of, like I said, the concept of home loans is not the same as a business loan. It's going to be quite different, in particular when you're talking about either buying a property or you're talking about getting startup capital for your business. I think that's also something that's a misconception. So getting with David or some of his staff at the Small Business Development Center can kind of provide you with that insight. So that's also super important. Another question that I get often, well, not necessarily often, but I've had at least once or twice. It was related to restaurant owners that own a pretty successful restaurant, right? And they're considering expanding to another location, or maybe they have two locations and are considering expanding again. And then the idea of franchising comes into play. Can you kind of talk a little bit about the franchising model, and then maybe talk about maybe some of the businesses that you've worked with that have kind of executed that model effectively?
Yeah. So franchising is conceptually, it's fairly, it sounds like it's fairly easy. I have an idea and I'm going to let somebody else use my idea and they'll pay me for that. And that is it on the surface. But what is very difficult about it is you have to kind of build that business that is repeatable and documented, that can be, under pretty much similar conditions, will always be successful. And a lot of businesses just aren't that. So that's it's kind of difficult to do that. I'm a proponent of work towards that, because if you can put together a business that is very documented and has good systems, that's going to be a strong business as it is too. So to put together a franchise, it can be very expensive. You have to do a lot of research. You have to kind of build they call it an operations manual. Every business should sort of have policies and procedures like that, but it's very detailed, and there's a lot of laws that you have to pass with the operating document. And but it is a good exercise. It's one that I would recommend kind of keeping in mind as you get started, because again, that's how you build a good business.
Awesome. And have you worked with people to transition them from one or two locations to a franchise model before? And
we have. We're working on one now that's it's a gym member, a gym, and they're doing very well. And so we're going to test the first one here pretty soon. But again, it was very expensive. You have to have some decent attorneys, franchise attorneys, to kind of put these legal documents together, the agreements and things. And so it is a good growth strategy, but it's not for the faint of heart, and it has to be pretty expensive. You know, you have to have some funding to get it done.
Definitely. Awesome. So now I guess we'll go into the wrapping up of the main questions, but we have three more questions that we'll kind of dive into. And really it's just overall advice to people. So what advice would you give to a new business owner who's looking to just start up their venture? Maybe the top three things you would say that you need to get addressed before you start taking the plunge.
Do your research. You know, make sure that that you know that there's going to be customers. That there's demand. Spend some time to do that. Don't get in a hurry. Talk to other business owners and that are in the business. You know, if you if you're a certain kind of business, maybe you call similar businesses across the country that you're not directly competing with, and ask to talk to those business owners. Most people are very helpful and they'll be glad to help you. So that's the main thing, is kind of vet that idea. Also, don't go it alone. Build yourself a team of experts around you. Make sure you have a good attorney for your legal setups and a good CPA. Most businesses don't fail because of, most businesses do fail because they're kind of undercapitalized. But the second business reason that they fail is poor books and record keeping. So people can get into trouble with the IRS or things, not because of something they did, but something they didn't do because they didn't know they had to file certain things like that. So make sure you have a good, strong team around you. But those are the two main things. Good research. Take your time. Don't get in a hurry. Check the feasibility, and then build that team of experts. We're free. We're always here. There's Louisville is very welcoming and an entrepreneurial community. There's a bunch of organizations that you can tap into. There's tons of free trainings, entrepreneurial meetups. So get involved, learn a bunch, take the plunge.
Awesome. And then as far as business owners that are currently established, maybe they've had their business for a few years and now they're looking to take their business to the next level. What advice would you share with them? Maybe similar to what you just shared, maybe your top 2 or 3 things that you would say.
Yeah, we do a lot of that. We actually have a program called Scale Up Louisville, where there's businesses tend, after they've been in business for maybe 3 years, they kind of get to the point, if they're growing, that it's easy to get out of control. The owner get out of control because it gets beyond what they can get their arms around, and that's the point where you really need to work to professionalize that business so that it has the capacity to grow. It's interesting because that's almost like what we just talked about, the franchise model, where you really have to kind of look at your business, take some time out, maybe not focus on sales and grow the business, but build the back end house, the systems, that business to get it ready before you have that next growth spurt. We call this de-risking. There's a lot of inherent risks in a business that's been around for a while. So, for example, if you look at your customers and maybe 80% of your sales come from one customer, well, that's a concentration risk in that customer. Or if you have one sales guy that's really good and most of your sales come from him, well, that's an employee risk that you might want to watch out for. I had a bookkeeper one time that I made mad one day, and she walked out on me, and she had the password to QuickBooks, and I didn't have it. I was kind of screwed. So there's kind of cyber security risks, risk on we call that contingency plan, where if there's a disaster or things like that, where do you keep all the documents? Who has access to the bank accounts? All these systemic sort of things. But it takes a little bit of process. It takes about a year sometimes to kind of put all these things together. But once that is all done, this business is stronger. It's worth more. It adds value to the business, because a buyer, if he wanted to sell that day, will look at that and say, that's a well-run business. I can run that. I'll pay for that. And then also, if I suddenly get a big customer, I have the back end systems in place where I can now handle those sales, handle that extra capacity.
Awesome. And that you made a great point, in the sense that at some point you may want to have the business in your family forever, but then there's also an opportunity down the line that if you build the systems correctly on the front end, you have the opportunity for an exit on the back end. So that's something to consider even from the beginning of your business to be able to do.
Yeah, if you always build it to sell, whether you sell it or not, it doesn't matter. It's a well-run business that you actually, it's easier for you to run. You can take vacations, things like that. You know, it's something that somebody will pay for. And it's also, you know, if a business is kind of in disarray and you want to sell it, it's hard to sell, but a well-run business will always have people that might just check in and say, hey, would you like to sell your business? And that's pretty flattering if you have a business that somebody is interested in buying.
Definitely. Awesome. Well, that kind of wraps up the preset questions that I had for you. But as far as the rest of the meeting, what I generally do is we usually open it up to questions. It looks like Renee may have a question for you. And then I'll check on Facebook as well to see if there's anyone on Facebook that has any questions.
Okay.
You have a question?
I do. Hi, everybody.
Hey, Renee.
So I have, thanks for inviting me, Raphael.
Of course.
So David, you might already know Amanda Berry. She's
yeah,
a
very
friend
well.
of mine who you know very well. That's great. Because my question is actually about what she does. So she pairs aspiring business owners with franchises that are looking to franchise in different areas of the country. And I was curious to know if you supply resources and services to those folks, as well as people who are opening up a new concept type of small business.
Absolutely. We work with Amanda a lot. You know, they have a program called FranFit that we've all gone through and gotten certified on. And so often somebody wants to buy a franchise, she has them set up and ready to go. You know, we work on the financing package for them, put that together and make it all happen.
That's awesome. Yeah, she's great. Amanda's great. She does work a lot with people who are just looking to either you own a business for a while and you want to transition to a new one, or you're maybe a first time business owner, and the franchise model, especially the ones that she works with, do have a pretty high success rate depending on the franchise. But awesome. Let me see if I'm check Facebook as well just to make sure.
Yeah, and I'll have a question too.
Jim, you have a question? Sure, yeah, go ahead.
Sure. You know, about a year ago, I was in the process of buying a small business from an owner who is a couple of years away from retirement, and negotiations actually broke down. We were just too far apart in pricing. Neither one of us had any experience in purchasing or selling a small business. I mean, he was just a small business owner for the past 20 years. Mm-hmm. And so I did what any newbie would do. I used Google and spent hours and days putting together what I thought would be a fair package price. Based on what I found, I showed him everything. You know, I didn't hold anything back. I wasn't trying to be dishonest. I wasn't trying to take on the role of power negotiating for the best price. But I think our needs were too different. So kind of a two-pronged question. One is more of the general, maybe where do you recommend to go for resources for that scenario, for pricing? And the second question will actually segue into something a little bit more pointed. Since negotiations broke down, I'm potentially in the hunt for opening or buying a new business. I'm leaning toward purchasing an existing business because at my age, I'm 49. You know, the whole start from scratch thing, I just know that the percentage of success is lower than buying something that's already proven, has somewhat of a track record, has some infrastructure in place. You know where I'm going with this. Mm-hmm. So the second question, or second part of the question, I guess, would be, where do you recommend that I look for? And I'm not partial to franchises. That's a little too restrictive for me, but a small business, maybe from somebody who's looking to retire and transition out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a question I get a lot, and you know, that's you know, there is opportunities out there, just like you mentioned about the owner that was of retirement age, and just demographically, I think I saw a statistic where, I don't know, 60 to 70% of all businesses, of smaller businesses, are owned by people that are in their 60s or 70s. I mean, it's a huge number. So there's opportunity out there. But I'll tell you what the private equity firms do, and I think that's what, you know, your best source is that I mean, they have guys that do the research. You know, they'll pull a list of companies and just make those calls and introductions. If you have a library card, you can access a database there called Reference USA. You can sort by company industry, you know, name, and by company like the industry, geographically, even drill down to zip codes, on size, on employees, sales, all those sort of things. So you can get kind of a list that you might want to contact. And you know, the private equity guys tell me that's not just, you know, one contact. You just, you know, it's you have to have a conversation and just keep at it. And after you know, I think that they tell me they look at, you know, 2,000 deals to maybe, you know, buy one or two. I mean, it's there's a lot of people out there looking for opportunities like that. So persevere. That's the best advice I can tell you.
Yeah, I don't mind doing the work. I was just trying to ask for maybe a direction to point to. So I will do that.
Yeah, that Reference USA is a great way to get a list that you can start. And it has, you know, it has the phone number and the owner's name where you can give them a call.
No, these are actively for sale businesses. Is that what you're talking about? So
No, the businesses.
This is more for you're talking about for pricing for existing business industry.
No, if you're just looking for something to buy, you know, the way to find a good deal is to try to develop that relationship where you can get the deal off market. You know, develop those. You know, this is what the private equity guys do. For pricing models, there's some databases out there where you can buy, you know, quick buy some information. We don't actually subscribe to that, but the industry standard is called Pratt's Stats. And so what they do is they use a range of multiples. So they don't. So if you have a body shop, for example, that's doing, you know, $1 million in sales, it'll give you a range. It'll say generally the range on an EBITDA is between 2 and 7 or something. And depending on those factors that I talked about earlier on, you know, how well the business is put together, that determines on where along that range does that business fall as far as the multiples go.
And I'll also say, have you talked to, because there's such things as business brokers too. So they also may have people that they've been talking to in a while, and that's their whole business, is they just essentially talk to business owners to see if they're interested in selling their business. So I would probably reach out to some business brokers. I have one contact that I can put you in contact with if you like. But yeah, I would just try to talk to them about it, various information that they have available, and they'll probably be able to point you in the right direction too.
Sure. I'd be interested in following up on that. I thought, well, we had Dave here, I would pick his brain.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and I mean, you could utilize those resources at the Small Business Development Center. I'm sure if he's looking to buy, I'm assuming you probably could help him with that as well, as far as the resources are concerned.
But you know, really, you know, Raphael, you know, in real estate, you know, the best deals are the ones that are off market, that hadn't hit the market yet. So that's why I recommend it's, you know, if you are really interested, you know, do the work, and you should be able to find a hit or two.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I definitely agree. All right, let me check the Facebook comments over here. All right, looks like I think that's it. I don't know if we don't have any other questions. I just want to. So, do you have any, I guess, other things that you wish I would have asked you that you think would be valuable to the group, just kind of out of passing?
I don't know. I would just, you know, like I said, Louisville is a great town, you know, to be in business and to be an entrepreneur. And there's a lot of entrepreneurial groups and other people just like, you know, you guys are interested in, and, you know, get involved and get around and learn what's going on and take advantage of all that's available.
Awesome. And then as far as if people wanted to get in contact with you or anyone in your office, like how could they get in contact with you?
Website is louisvillesmallbusiness.com, and you can just poke us there. Or, you know, I can, you know, my name's a little hard to spell, so email's not that not kind of hard to say, but yeah, louisvillesmallbusiness.com. Check it out.
Awesome. And I will, this will be recorded on YouTube as well. So I'll be posting all that information in the show notes so that you guys can come back and rewatch this into perpetuity. So awesome. Well, thanks again for everyone for just hopping on, and thanks Dave again for stopping by and sharing a lot of great information. And I guess we'll see you guys soon.
Yep. Thank you. Good to see
See
you
you guys.
Thanks, Dave.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rob.
Yeah.